Hey guys. So today I want to walk you through how I visualize my day, my energy, my adaptations. Just a way that a mental tool that I use to help me kind of balance my ADHD, my autism, all of the different things, and kind of keep centered. So I guess that's what it's real intention. It's a tool for staying centered and balanced. So I want you to visualize with me. So visualize a large circle. It's a huge circle. It's just flat circle. You can visualize like a wide open field if you want to, but it's just a large circle and you're standing directly in the center of it. So now I want you to think of this circle like a compass, except for it's not a compass that points towards north or south or east or west, but it's a compass that points towards all of the different things that pulls towards your energy. So it could be hobbies like painting or reading, or it could be work requirements like a deadline or something stressful, or it could be you have children and it's things they need, or it's things that they do that fill you with energy. It's all the possible directions you could go at any given time. So you're in this circle, you're looking around, you're seeing all these different things all around you and all the places you can go. And I want you to kind of think of that as like the ADHD part. So this is the novelty seeking. You're looking at all these things and you're like, where do I go? Which one do I pick? And when I pick one, how long do I stay there? And so that kind of leads more into the autism thing. So for me, my ADHD, I can get pulled in many directions, especially when I'm not intentional about it. So if I don't schedule my day, if I don't do some kind of early journaling in order to get the noise out of my head and just kind of look at what I need to do for the day, all of that helps me to kind of start from a good center, from a good balanced place. So let me give you some examples. Let's say you wake up and you want to go for a walk. Okay, so you start off from the center of your circle and you move towards the outer edge of your circle and you're moving towards the direction of a walk. Now, this it could be a line that goes just a little ways out from the center, or it could be a very long line. Let's say you lose track of time and time blindness is a thing, and then you realize before long that you've been kind of walking around the same block for like an hour and a half. Okay, well that line's a lot longer from the center of the circle towards the outside of the circle than if you were just to take a 10-minute walk. So I point that out because you got to kind of think about all of these activities. A walk may not be the best example, but let's say you dive into a project and you do the same thing and you get a few hours in unintentionally because you didn't set some kind of boundary. Well, now you're way, way, way far away from your center, and you're going to have to do some adjustments and some pivots and backtracking in order to get back into like the zone around the center of the circle where you are most balanced. So now you're not just going from the center of the circle to the outside of the circle and back. You're not going to like just, rewind time. You're going to move towards something else. So now you're out here and you've got to move over here. But at the same time, you've got to try to stay near your center. And if you go too far in any one direction, you're going to throw everything off balance. So let's add something else to this visual. So now you've got this circle and you're visualizing it like a compass, and you can go in any direction wherever your energy sends you. Um, and you can go in a lot of different directions in different magnitudes. So you can go a little bit towards this way or a lot of it towards that way, or vice versa, knowing that there will be corrections to your course that will have to happen. So I want you to imagine that through this kind of course correcting as you bounce around this circle in different directions, heading from, let's say, a walk to a project to reading to just like drawing on a doodle on a piece of paper to YouTube to death scroll on murder scroll, death scroll on your phone to like just burning hours. Like it's real easy, as you can imagine, to start having these crisscrossing lines that go in every which direction. And it's also really easy to be very far from your center before you know it if you don't plan and intentionally build a day around what you need to be balanced. So for me, what I'm trying to do, knowing that I'm not going to be able on most days to spend 8 solid hours on anything. I don't know that that's healthy for anyone, but even if I broke it up into like 4 different chunks, like spending 8 hours on one project is going to be just unpleasant for me by the end of the day. Uh, uh, it, it it makes a lot of other things that should be easy harder. So, for example, if I just did 8 hours working on one task on a computer, like on an Excel spreadsheet or something, and working out some logistics stuff, then by the end of that day, just making spaghetti, like putting noodles and pasta into water and boiling, it seems like just a monumental task. Everything else gets more challenging because I am so far away from that center. So keep that in mind. And when you're moving towards one direction, remember that. Remember, there will be a pivot later. There will be a counteraction. There will be balance some way, shape, or form, whether you want it to happen or not. For some of us, that shows up in the form of burnout because we've got so far away from the things that center and balance us that burnout is inevitable. And so burnout then forces us to slowly recover and recuperate in a way that is generally quite unpleasant and jarring. So if we can plan ahead for these things, it makes it easier. So I want you to think about like a spiral. So instead of doing the star pattern, jumping all over the place, by planning, you can intentionally structure the things in your day that you know you need to go and visit. You can put them in an order, just like you would if you needed to go to the store. If you're like me and driving is a thing that is has a limit. If I drive too much, then I get to a point where the sensory stuff just becomes too much. So I know I have to pace that out. And I know when I make a trip, I need to make it worthwhile. So I am going to make a plan and I'm going to go to things in order. I'm going to go to the things that are easy on this side of the highway. And then coming back, I'm going to go to the things on the other side. And I'm just going to make decisions that add a level of simplicity and ease to my life. Just make those transitions a little bit easier because transitions are brutal. So that's where the planning comes in. Like the transitions and the different places you have to go, that's likely to remain the same whether or not you plan for them or not. So it's up to you to make sure that those things impact your day in the least negative way, in the most positive way possible. So you're going back and now you're in a spiral because you did this thing and now you did the thing next to it and then you did the thing next to it and you're working your way across these other things that make sense to you and you're not getting as far away from your center because you put some effort into planning. You didn't let yourself run off in one direction too long. You didn't let yourself get pulled into the deep dive for too long. Now, you have to go into the deep dive if you want to put your abilities and your skills and the things that you are, your special capabilities that each person has. If you want to put those things to use, you have to embrace the deep dive. But you can put limits to it. You can put limits to it and make it so much better because by putting limits to it, not only do you keep yourself in that controllable spiral, but you also keep yourself closer. Um, oh, I lost the track for a second there. So by putting limits, not only do you keep yourself within that controllable spiral, but you also reduce the chance that you're going to get burnt out by this thing. You reduce the chance that you're going to get bothered by whatever it is that is you have to work on. So like you spread them out. You know that things are better enjoyed in small pieces and fraction and chunks. And you also have to keep in mind, like, this isn't different for everybody. So for some people, like my autistic side wants to run. It wants to run at a thing and like not stop until that thing is done. My ADHD side wants to jump around. And so that's where my balance is. That's why I have this spiral because I'm running this way and I'm bouncing back and I'm running this way and I'm bouncing. I'm doing controlled movements because I know that if I don't, I'm going to end up in some form of burnout, overload, whatever you want to call it, because that's just the way it is. That's you learn that about yourself after so many years of dealing with these challenges. But also, it becomes. I don't want to use the word superpower because that's thrown around way too much with people on the spectrum, but it becomes a huge benefit, a huge power if you can harness it because what it is basically passion and focus fighting against each other, but moving in the same direction. And you just have to kind of find this spot in the middle that is like, you know, imagine like, you're a race car driver and you're drifting behind another car. You just have to find that sweet spot where things move easiest. You have to find your flow. You have to remove as much noise as possible. So that is one of the ways that you kind of keep that tight spiral going is you remove all of the extra noises that pull you all around, and you have a trajectory and you intentionally work towards that, and you make your day, you plan your day around that, because you learn that at 2 o'clock, that's not when you're at your best in terms of creative projects. That's when you're prime for like repetitive tasks, copy and paste things. We all have a mix of things. Not everything requires, a huge amount of just mental bandwidth. A lot of stuff just requires putting one foot in front of another, and you have to recognize that. That you plan your day around that, and you put those things when you're at your weakest, and you put the big projects when you're at your strongest. And it's not always first thing in the morning. A lot of people like to eat their bullfrogs first, and I do that a lot of the time. But sometimes my energy isn't in that direction, and I have to understand that fighting that is going to result in less productivity and getting less done in the end. So I have to kind of keep that in mind. So now I want to bring one more aspect into this visualization. So we looked at this circle. We're staring into the middle of it. We know it's basically a compass. We can go in all sorts of directions. And if we manage and course correct appropriately, we can just kind of hover in a zone right around the center of that circle, which is just enough discomfort to keep us growing. And by doing that, the center of that circle is also growing. So as we get better at this, we get better at all the things that we put our energy into, because we're getting more centered. We can stretch ourselves a little further. We can expand our discomfort zone because you get comfortable with it. And everybody who is kind of, had the mask, they understand that there's a level of comfort, there's a little discomfort, and then there's too far. Like, you have to find that sweet spot that lets you grow. Because if everything's comfortable, you're not growing, and you're probably honestly going the opposite direction, because that's just how it works. We're all atrophying in some way, shape, or form. But I lost. Let me come back here. So we got this circle, your compass, and now you're spinning. I want you to imagine, though, that now you're adding another dimension to it, and you're going to take the center of that circle and you're going to pull it down to create a funnel. What that does, what I'm kind of trying to have you visualize here, is that you control your day. You control your plan to some extent. Now, there are things you can't control, but we're not talking about those. You can't do anything about that. So the things that you can control, if you shape them and you look at your schedule and you look at your energy and how your uneven productivity and where you make the most impact and when, you shape your day and you start to make this funnel. And what this funnel does now is, now instead of just spiraling around, with nothing tying you to the center, now you have something that's driving you towards that center. You have a structure that keeps pushing all of the things that you are and all of the things that you do and all of the things, it keeps pushing them towards your center. The more things you have near your center, one, you're going to see things fall off the board that weren't important. They didn't matter. You're going to realize as you get closer, you're thinking about them from a place of balance, that they're not even worth your time. And so you're going to kind of get better at prioritizing things. You're going to get things off your plate. You're going to get things, look at the things that matter most when they matter most. And that center's just going to keep growing. And that funnel is going to get deeper and deeper. And what's going to happen is, the more you lean into your routine, the more you lean into the things that you can control, the harder it's going to be for any of those things, any of the, however you want to visualize it, the things you're juggling or whatever you've got rotating, bouncing around the center. Like, if you look at, I'm thinking of one of those quarter things when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. You drop a quarter and it goes around the funnel and it goes and goes and goes and eventually falls down the center. And you're like, oh, that was cool. It's like that. Like, it gets harder and harder for any of those quarters to fall outside of your funnel and to fly off into, chaos land or whatever you want to call it. But because you've shaped your flat circle, you turned it into a compass and figured out how to use it as a direction. And you took that and turned it into a funnel to where all of the things that matter to you continuously revolve around your core and your center and shape you. And you just make micro adjustments. And eventually you have a day that you can love and enjoy and thrive in and repeat, repeat, repeat. That's the key thing. You can repeat it. Now, I'm not saying every day is going to be Groundhog Day. It doesn't have to be the exact same, a copycat replica or anything like that. You couldn't do that if you tried. Outside of like being a shut in or something. Like you don't want to have that much control. There are, and especially if you have an ADHD, say like you're gonna need some novelty, but the framework and the structure and the routine is what will ensure that all of your novelty and all of your experimenting and all of your adventuring keeps you coming back towards this center, towards yourself and building a better version of you that just feels more complete and more whole with each and every day that goes by. I'm gonna cut it there. I hope that gives you an idea of kind of what it's like for someone with autism and ADHD and all these things, like how I visualize planning my day and how I work it into a structure that works for me. Because a straight line is never gonna be ideal for me. I'm gonna have to be ready to pivot and adjust. I hope that helps, and I hope you enjoyed the day.